My SDR just promoted from SDR to account executive. So I want to make a video talking about the SDR to AE transition. I went through it and I can tell you from firsthand experience, being an account executive is significantly better. The main difference is skill and will. I think a sales job comes down to skill and will. Skill, your ability to do something really well. Will, how hard you try. I'm going to make 1 million cold calls today. When you come in as an SDR, your main job is generating pipeline, setting meetings. And the idea to be successful is, well, I'll make 100 cold calls a day. I'll send 1 million emails. I'll be active on LinkedIn. And that pure volume, that willpower of trying really hard allows you to be successful. And I'd say being an SDR, it's like 75% will, just trying harder, being consistent, being disciplined, making your calls when you don't want to make the calls. And then it's 25% skill, being able to increase your answer rate, your set rate, your show rate, your conversion rate on the phones. People are so interested in these outbound sales tactics when in reality, none of it really matters as much as just putting in activity, taking action, and contacting prospects that may have a problem that your solution can solve. That's being an SDR. When you go from being an SDR to an account executive, your main responsibility is generating pipeline and generating revenue. So you are responsible for all of the sales stages to go from outbound to closing the deal. Discovery, solution presentations, giving demos, putting together proposals, negotiating, and then going through all the internal minutia of your company to actually get a deal done. And then never underestimate a prospect's ability to disappoint you. So I think it's way better being an AE, but it's way harder because this skill will dimension, I think it totally flips. I think being an account executive, it's 75% skill and 25% will, in my view, oversimplified. Because the skill component, what I've realized is I used to talk so much about making 1 million calls, working harder, and those things will help. But what I've learned in this role as an account executive, working fully remote, I've been in my current company over a year. I've hit quota 3 or 4 quarters in my first year, so very successful start, is I am pretty dependent on the inbound router. Fortunately, I have meetings put on my calendar with qualified prospects that have intent and urgency and problems that they want to have solved. The skill element is being able to run with that and actually close a deal. And I know you're thinking, well, it's so much easier to close inbound than outbound. Yes, that's true. But being able to take an inbound, do the proper qualification, do the discovery, and then build value, truly build value around their problem to expand the deal size and then to maximize your win rate. I track all of the initial meetings I have, and then I'm continuously updating. Did I win it? Did I lose it? So I'm looking at how many meetings do I have, how many wins, how many losses, how big are my deals? And what I've learned is my ability to hit quota, it oftentimes comes down to 1 or 2 deals. For example, last quarter, I closed $1 million deal. That allowed me to finish Q2 at about 233% of a fully weighted quota, fully ramped. If I would not have closed that deal, I would have finished less than 30%. It would have been a horrible quarter, but I closed the one deal that really mattered, and it was an amazing quarter. My ability to close that deal was purely skill. It doesn't matter how much more I tried or how much more times I called the account. Once you're in the account and you have the relationship with the buyer, you can meet with them on a set schedule. Maybe you're meeting weekly. Maybe you're meeting twice a week. Maybe you're not able to get the next meeting. You can spend more time preparing, and maybe that's where the will comes into play of I'm going to over prepare, I'm going to try really hard. But ultimately, your ability to progress that sales cycle forward is purely based on skill. That's why being an account executive is 75% skill, 25% will. And then being an SDR, 75% will, trying harder, 25% skill. I think that's the main difference going from SDR to AE. And then as I think about how I actually spend my time, I get this question a lot. There's 3 activities that I spend my time on as an account executive: pipeline generation, pipeline health, and self-development. Pipeline generation is being an SDR. That is all an SDR does, pipeline generation. As an account executive, I have to do that too because I still need to do some prospecting. I would say it's like 15% of my time, maybe 20% of my time. I don't do as much prospecting as I'd like to be doing because I recognize that the leverage in the role is pipeline health. And that is monitoring all of my open deals, progressing them forward, figuring out what do I got to do to win. And it really is a problem solving activity. I'd say that's 75, 80% of my time is working on my existing deals and progressing them forward, identifying where are gaps in Medic. Do I have scheduled next meetings? Do I need to put together any proposals? For these bigger deals, there's always a problem or two. There's something that if you can solve, it will unlock value and allow you to move it forward. And that's unique to each deal. And that's where the skill, the creativity comes into play. And then the final bucket is personal development, leveling up, getting better. I'd say that's 5 to 10% of my time. And I suppose SDRs do that as well. If I zero in on the most important skills in account executive, oversimplified, I really think it's discovery. I think that's something SDRs don't do enough of because on a cold call, you're not doing discovery. The purpose is to set a meeting. You may be taught BANT and you're doing some qualification. Any info is good information, but you're just trying to set the meeting. As an account executive, if you don't do effective discovery at the beginning, if you just go on talking, a lot of rookie reps, when they go from SDR to AE, they're like, we're the best, we're number one, feature. They don't listen, they don't learn, and this leads to gaps later in the sales process. And if you haven't truly heard them or seen them, and then you're showing a proposal and you haven't actually understood what the issue is, you're not going to win the deal. Meanwhile, experienced reps who know how to do discovery, they create value by asking great questions, listening, and seeking to truly understand. And as I think about a few practical tips to do better discovery, it comes down to your pre-disco prep, your on the disco meeting, and then your post-disco follow-up. On the pre-disco prep, you always want to understand account level, how do they make money as a business, what industry are they in, how big is the company. If your ideal company profile fit is software industry, but you're speaking with an oil company, probably not a great fit. If your ideal fit is sub 250 employees and they're 25,000 employees, exciting, but you probably won't be able to sell to them. You want to make sure the account's a good fit holistically, you understand the business, and then you think about the lead. And this is all in the prep work. The lead in the hierarchy, are they a manager? Are they a director? Are they a C-level? The higher up in the hierarchy you can be to start, the better. When you're actually on the discovery call, I think the most important tactic is second and third layer questions. This is something I was not naturally good at, and I think this is a skill that can be learned by everyone. If the prospect says something in response to your question, you don't just say, okay, great. And then you don't go on to your next question about a whole nother subject. You say, it sounds like, hey, tell me more about boom. Once they tell you something, you work with that. You keep asking questions about that because that's how you truly understand the negative consequences of their scenario. And then that's ultimately how you build this beautiful vision and this whole business case around, you're going to spend $1 million with us and it's going to solve all of your problems. And then, of course, the post-disco meetings, making sure you have a scheduled next event. And then a practical tip you can use that I just learned with AI, we have Gong. So after every meeting, I go to Gong, I copy the transcript, I paste the transcript, and this is thousands of characters, in Gemini. We have the paid Gemini. And I say, I'm an AE at XYZ, give me the top takeaways from this meeting. And then once it gives me that, I'll say, okay, great. Give me a specific follow-up to send from that meeting. I find that that's better than whatever the preset that Gong gives you after the meeting. That's a difference going from being an SDR to an AE. I'm excited for my SDR, and I'm excited for those of you who are trying to become SDRs and those of you who are grinding away in SDR today. Keep going because it's way better on the other side.